Welcome back to Hoffman Leatherworks. Today we're going to be working on a inside the waistband holster for a M&P9. We're going to start today with using the laser cutter. If you get the pattern from me, you will get all the SVG files to use on your laser cutter. So this, I just took a light laser to the leather and essentially kind of printed the pattern onto the leather. And you can see I punched the holes already, and here I'm just cutting the pattern out, getting ready to start working on it. You also, if you do get the pattern, there is a PDF file that you'll get too, so you can still use the PDF file to print out and tape on if you don't have a laser cutter. So here you see we just get the pattern on the leather and get all the holes punched and everything. So now we'll go ahead and, at this point, I dye the leather. You see the holes for the back, for the clip, those are going to be, there's so many different kinds. So this is just for the one that I use specifically on this holster. But of course you use any clip that you have. But we'll go ahead and I'll show you how I dye it. Just using an English bridal leather with an airbrush, of course, as you see, and then kind of darken up the edges a little bit. Gives it a little bit more interest. I really like using the airbrush. For me, it saves a lot of dye over dipping. Does a great job. Way better than hand dyeing with a wool dauber or something. So you get a lot better finish. You can keep tweaking it, and I kind of like this look too with the light brown with the black. So here's the clip I was talking about. This is the one that I'm using for this particular holster. So the holes are set up for it. So I just went and stitched that clip onto the holster. Now I'm going to just glue the edges just to kind of give it a little stick. These inside the waistband holsters are really pretty quick to make, and you get a really nice result. This design is really, I feel, really good. This is the one that I use to carry. So we'll go ahead and get those stuck together. I use I have a bunch of little awls. I use them to line the holes up, make sure everything is good. Since we pre-punched the holes, you gotta make sure they align once you glue them together, and this is the perfect way to do that. Then I pop some little clips on there just for a temporary to keep it together. I'll go ahead and I got that all stitched up and did a little work on the edges, did a little sanding. Up to this point I don't finish the whole edges, before I do. But I get them a little close, and like I say, do a little sanding. So go ahead and soak it in the water, get it softened up, and get ready to start the molding process. This is just water that I keep on my bench. I change it every few days, depending on how many of these I do. Some of the dye tends to leach into the water a little bit, so you get a little bit miscoloration, but you don't need any special warm water or all those things. I'm sure it doesn't hurt, but there's absolutely no reason. This is just cold water that's room temperature, sits on my bench. all day and night. So here you see I put the gun mold in the holster and put it in the little press that I made. Just some wood with some foam. I use 4 clamps on it and get her clamped down as tight as I can. Let it sit. I'll let it sit, an hour, 2 hours, kind of depending upon the workload in the shop. So here I think this one it's been about an hour. Let's go ahead and I'll take the clamps off. See what we got. There you go. You got a molded holster for your M&P9. You can do a little bit hand molding at this point just to kind of sharpen up any of the edges or however you want at this point. I generally don't. I think it's a waste of time, and I think it's people that do a lot of that hand molding and make sure everything is really, really defined. One, it doesn't really do any good, and it just kind of looks dumb on the holster. So here the holster's dried. This is the next day. I go ahead and use a little saddle soap with a sponge, and I just use that on the edges to kind of weten and soften them up a little bit, and you get that saddle soap in there. And I start with the little Dremel with an edger tool on it, kind of get things going. Then I'll usually finish it off with a wood slicker by hand, just to kind of get the final details and get it to really how I want it to be. Remember to hit subscribe and the like button, the alert button for more, so you get alerted when I send out new videos. So there you see we got a nice fit. It loosens up a little bit with time, but you got a really nice fit on there. Here I use the same airbrush to spray on a light finish. Leather balm is what I use, mixed down 50-50 with water. So I give it a couple little thin coats. It dries really quick, so just as I'm doing it, I'll do a couple really thin light coats with the airbrush. Get a good seal on it. I really like the leather balm. I've been using it for years. Like I said, I mix it down about 50-50 with a little water. So once that dries, and like I said, it takes literally seconds, then I just use a little brush and kind of buff it up. Makes it all look nice and shiny, and gives it a good seal on there. Not perfectly waterproof, but I don't really feel these holsters need to be waterproof, so it just gives it a nice finish. And remember, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.